Why does the old lady need such a high-tech TV? That was the question my son-in-law threw into the air, as if I weren't standing right there, as if I were invisible, as if my 73 years had erased my right to decide what to do with my own money. Brad was already bossing the delivery guys around, pointing toward the door, instructing them to take my brand new television straight to his car. My daughter Ashley stood off to the side, wringing her hands in front of her chest, apologizing to her husband for not being the one to offer him the device herself. I watched that scene unfold for a full 5 minutes, feeling the air in the room turn thick, heavy, almost unbreathable. And then, I spoke without fear. I am not going to allow this. My voice came out firm, firmer than it had sounded in years. The three of them spun around to look at me as if I had shouted a profanity. Brad furrowed his brow. Ashley's eyes went wide with feigned surprise. The delivery guys stopped dead in their tracks, unsure of what to do with the massive box they were already hauling toward the truck. "Margaret," Brad said with that smile that never quite reached his eyes, "you don't need a gadget this complicated. It's too much for you. It has so many buttons, so many streaming apps. You're going to get confused. We'll get much better use out of it. Besides, you hardly ever watch TV." "I hardly ever watch TV because I don't have a decent TV," I replied. "That is why I bought this one. With my money, with my savings." Ashley stepped closer then, using that soft tone she uses when she wants to manipulate me, that tone she learned to perfect over the years. "Mom, don't get upset. Brad just wants to help. You know, we always think about what's best for you. The best for me, or the best for you two?" The silence that followed was brutal. I could hear the clock on the wall ticking away every second. The delivery guys looked at the floor, uncomfortable. One of them cleared his throat. "Ma'am, excuse me, but we need to know where to leave this. Our shift ends in 20 minutes. "Leave it right here," I said, pointing to the living room of my own house. "Here is where it stays. Here is where I live. This is my address. This television is mine." Brad let out a dry laugh, one of those laughs that sounds more like contempt than amusement. "Margaret, don't be stubborn. You already have a TV. That old tube set works perfectly fine. Why do you want to spend so much money on something you won't even know how to use?" "For whatever I want, Brad. I don't have to explain myself to you." My daughter brought a hand to her forehead as if I were giving her an unbearable migraine. "Mom, please, don't do this. We're already looking ridiculous in front of the delivery guys. You two made yourselves look ridiculous all on your own." Finally, after an argument that lasted another 10 minutes, the delivery guys installed the television in my living room. Brad stormed out, slamming the door. Ashley followed him, but not before shooting me a look that said everything she didn't dare say out loud. When the door closed, I stood alone in front of that giant, modern, gleaming device. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something akin to victory. But I also felt fear, because I knew this wasn't going to end here. My name is Margaret Henderson. I am 73 years old. I became a widow 17 years ago. I raised my 3 children alone, working whatever jobs were necessary so they never went without. Ashley is the youngest. She was always the most attached to me, or so I thought. Then she married Brad, and everything changed. He arrived with his impeccable suit, his leased luxury car, his salesman's smile. At first, I liked him. He seemed polite, hardworking, ambitious. But over time, I started noticing things. The way he talked about senior citizens, as if they were a problem to be solved. The way he looked at my house appraising, calculating. Ashley began to parrot his phrases, his opinions, as if she no longer had thoughts of her own. 6 months ago, I sold a small plot of land I had upstate. It was the only thing I had left from my husband's inheritance. I sold it because I needed to fix the roof of the house and because I wanted a safety net for my expenses. I received $32,000. It isn't a fortune, but for me, it meant peace of mind. Ashley found out, and from that day on, the pressure began. "Mom, you should open a joint account with me. Mom, you should let me manage that money. Mom, at your age, it isn't safe to have that much cash available. What if you get scammed? What if you get confused? What if someone takes advantage of you?" I refused, over and over again. But they didn't stop insisting. Until one day, I decided to do something just for me, something I wanted, something that made me feel alive. I walked into an electronics store and bought the best television they had, $4,000, a huge smart screen, with all the apps, with access to movies, series, documentaries. I thought about all the afternoons I spend alone, all the time I have now that I'm retired, how much I would like to see the world, even if it's through a screen. I didn't tell anyone. I scheduled the delivery for a Friday afternoon, but Ashley showed up just as the delivery truck was pulling in. I don't know how she found out. I don't know if the store called her, if someone at the bank tipped her off, or if she has access to my transactions in some way I don't know about. But there she was, with Brad by her side, as if they had been waiting for this moment. Now I am sitting in my armchair, looking at that black, shiny screen. I haven't turned it on yet. I still don't dare. Because I know that as soon as I do, as soon as I start enjoying it, they are going to come back. They are going to invent some excuse, some emergency, some reason why I cannot have this. And I am afraid that this time I won't be able to stop them. Outside, it is starting to get dark. The shadows of the trees lengthen across the living room walls. I can hear the neighbors talking in the street, distant laughter, the engine of a car passing slowly. Everything seems normal, every day, calm. But inside me, something has changed. Something has broken, or maybe something has woken up. I look at the remote control on the coffee table. It is sleek, black, with buttons I still don't fully understand. I take it in my hands. It weighs less than I thought. I press the power button, and the screen comes to life with a soft glow. A menu full of options, colors, and possibilities appears. I feel like a little girl in front of a new toy. But then, my phone rings. It is Ashley. "Mom, we need to talk. I'm coming to your house tomorrow. Brad and I want to discuss something important with you, something about your future, about your safety." Her voice sounds serious, almost cold. There is no warmth, no affection. There is only determination. "All right," I reply. "I'll be here." I hang up the phone and stay staring at the illuminated screen. On it, a recommended movie appears. An older woman, alone, walking through a forest. The title says something about second chances. Maybe it's a sign, or maybe it's just a coincidence. But in this moment, sitting in my own house, in front of my own television, bought with my own money, I decide something. I decide that I am not going to let them take anything else from me. I decide that I am going to fight. I don't know how. I don't know with what weapons, but I am going to do it. Because if I don't do it now, I never will. And then, I truly will be lost. That night I couldn't sleep. I stayed awake until 4 in the morning, my mind spinning, reliving moments I thought I had left behind. Ashley as a child, with her messy braids, running toward me after school. Ashley as a teenager, crying on my shoulder when her first boyfriend dumped her. Ashley as an adult, on her wedding day, looking at me with tears in her eyes while telling me that I had been her best example, her rock, her everything. When did it change? When did I stop being her mother and become her burden? I got out of bed when the sky was beginning to lighten. I made coffee, the same cheap brand I've drunk for years because it never seemed necessary to spend on luxuries. I sat by the kitchen window and looked out at the empty street. The neighborhood was waking up slowly. Mr. George, my old neighbor, used to wave at me from his garden at this hour. But he moved 3 years ago, after I helped him with some legal papers when his son tried to take his house. I will never forget his face when he thanked me. "Margaret, you saved my life. If you ever need anything at all, find me." I never looked for him. I never asked for anything in return. That's how I was raised, give without expecting to receive. But now I wonder if that philosophy wasn't my biggest mistake. My husband died when I was 56, a massive heart attack while driving back from work. There was no time for goodbyes, no last words, just the phone ringing at midnight and an official voice telling me I needed to go to the hospital. When I arrived, it was already too late. The only thing I could do was hold his cold hand and wonder how I was going to go on. The first few months were hell. Ashley was 26. She was already living on her own. She already had her life together. My other 2 children, David and Sarah, were in other cities, busy with their own families, their own problems. Everyone came to the funeral. Everyone hugged me. Everyone promised to be there. But when the visits ended and the house became empty, I understood that I was alone. Completely alone. I had to go back to work. I had left my job years prior to raise the kids, to be the perfect wife, the perfect mother. Now I had to start from zero. I got a job cleaning offices, then at a laundromat, then caring for an elderly man who could barely move. Every day was a battle. Every night I came home with aching bones and an empty heart. But I survived. I paid the bills. I kept the house. I saved what I could. Ashley used to come visit me on Sundays. She brought pastries, told me about her job, her friends, the places she visited. I listened to her happily, thinking that at least she was doing well, that my sacrifices had been worth it. When she met Brad, she introduced him with pride. "Mom, he's special. He has plans. He has ambition. He's going to take me far." And he did take her far. So far that sometimes I feel I don't know her anymore. After the wedding, the visits became less frequent. Once a month, then every 2 months, then only on holidays. And when she came, she wasn't the same. She arrived in a rush, constantly checking her watch, criticizing things that had never bothered her before. "Mom, this house is too old. Mom, this neighborhood isn't safe anymore. Mom, why don't you move to a smaller place, easier to maintain?" I told her I was fine, that this house held my memories, that I had raised my children here, that I had been happy here with her father, but she insisted, and over time, I started to notice that behind her concern was something else, something I couldn't name but could feel. Brad never hid what he thought. In the few family gatherings I attended at his house, he always made comments. How hard must it be to get old? How complicated to manage money when memory starts to fail? How important it is to have someone trustworthy to help you with big decisions. I nodded, smiled, tried not to take his words as insults, but every comment was a seed of poison planted in my mind. A year ago, Ashley proposed something. "Mom, Brad and I were thinking, why don't you sell the house and move into an apartment near us? That way we can take better care of you. That way you won't be so lonely." I told her no, that this house was mine, that I wanted to stay here. She got upset. She told me I was stubborn, that I wasn't thinking of my own well-being, that someday I was going to regret it. Then came the proposal for the joint account. "Mom, if you put me as a co-owner, I can help you pay the bills, do the shopping, manage your expenses. It's for your security." I told her no again, and that was when things really started to change. The visits became tense. Brad stopped hiding his annoyance. Ashley began treating me as if I were a disobedient child, and I started to feel that every decision I made was questioned, analyzed, judged. When I sold the land, I thought I would have peace. I thought with that money I could live my remaining years quietly, without depending on anyone, without asking anyone for favors. But it was the opposite. That money woke them up. It made them more insistent, more urgent, more desperate. And now I am here, waiting for them to arrive, knowing they are going to ask me for something I don't want to give. The clock marks 10 in the morning when I hear the car parking in front of my house. I peek out the window and see them getting out. Brad is dressed as always, impeccable, with his pressed shirt and polished shoes. Ashley is wearing a discreet dress, and her hair is pulled back. They look like a perfect couple, but I know the truth behind those appearances. I open the door before they ring the doorbell. "Good morning." "Good morning, Mom," Ashley says, kissing my cheek. Her kiss is quick, automatic, without real affection. Brad greets me with a nod. He doesn't even try to fake warmth. "Come in," I tell them, stepping aside. They enter, and their eyes go straight to the television. Brad looks at it with a mixture of envy and disdain. Ashley sighs as if the mere presence of the device were a personal offense. "Do you want coffee?" I offer. "No, Mom. We're not here for a social visit. We're here to talk about something serious." I sit in my armchair. They remain standing, which makes me feel small, vulnerable. It is a tactic I recognize. Dominate the space. Control the conversation from above. "Mom," Ashley starts with that tone I already know. "We are worried about you. Very worried." "Why?" "I'm fine. No, you aren't fine. Yesterday you spent $4,000 on a television you don't need. That isn't normal. That is a sign that something is wrong. I bought something I wanted with my own money. I don't see what is wrong with that. Brad takes a step forward. Margaret, the problem isn't the television. The problem is that you are making impulsive, irresponsible decisions. What's next? Are you going to buy a sports car? A trip to Europe? If I wanted to, yes. It is my money. That is exactly what worries us, says Ashley. Mom, that money has to last you for years. You can't spend it on whims. It is not a whim. It is something that makes me happy. Happiness doesn't pay hospital bills, Brad snaps. Happiness doesn't cover a medical emergency. The silence that followed those words was dense, charged with intentions I still couldn't fully decipher. Brad looked at me with that expression he had perfected over the years, that mixture of feigned concern and real superiority. Ashley had her hands crossed in her lap, lips pressed into a thin line. Mom, my daughter continued with a soft, almost maternal voice, as if our roles had reversed. We have been thinking a lot about your situation, about your future, and we believe the time has come to make important decisions. What kind of decisions? Decisions that protect you, that protect all of us. Brad sat on the edge of the sofa, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. Margaret, let's be direct. You are 73 years old. You live alone in a house that is too big. You handle money that could attract people with bad intentions. You don't have anyone nearby who can help you if something happens. I have a phone. I have neighbors. I have you two, supposedly. That isn't enough, Ashley said. What happens if you fall and can't get up? What happens if someone knocks on your door and scams you? What happens if you start forgetting things, getting confused with numbers? I am not getting confused with anything. But it could happen, Brad insisted, and when it happens, it's going to be too late. That's why we want to propose something. Something that will give you peace of mind. He pulled a folder out of his briefcase. It was one of those elegant folders, synthetic brown leather with a metal clasp. He opened it on the coffee table and extracted several documents. This is a durable power of attorney, Brad explained, pointing to the first document. If you sign this, Ashley will be able to manage your bank accounts, your properties, your medical decisions. Everything. That way you don't have to worry about anything. We take care of it. I felt a chill run down my back. It wasn't that I didn't understand the words. I understood them perfectly. What I couldn't believe was that they were actually saying them to me. You want me to give you total control of my life? Don't look at it that way, Mom. Look at it as a backup, as insurance. You continue making your decisions, but we can intervene if necessary. Intervene? What does that mean exactly? Ashley sighed, as if I were a difficult child who didn't understand what was good for her. It means that if we see you are spending money irresponsibly, we can stop it. If we see someone is manipulating you, we can protect you. If you need medical attention and you refuse, we can make that decision for you. Every word was a blow. Every phrase was a door closing. And this other document, Brad continued, pulling out more papers, is an authorization so we can enroll you in an assisted living facility when the time comes. Not now, of course, but eventually. It is important to have everything prepared in advance. Assisted living? Are you talking about a nursing home? They are very nice places now, Mom. They have gardens, activities, nurses, 24 hours a day. You would be much better off than here, alone. I am not alone, and I am not going to any nursing home. Brad stood up, walking toward the window with his hands in his pockets. His tone changed, becoming colder, more direct. Margaret, let's be realistic. This house is worth approximately $120,000. You have $32,000 in the bank, now $28,000 after your impulsive purchase. That sums up to $148,000. If you manage that money well, it can last you 10 years, maybe 15. But if you keep spending on nonsense, on expensive televisions and who knows what else, that money is going to run out in 3 years. And then, what are you going to do? That is my problem, not yours. But it is going to become our problem, said Ashley, standing up too. When your money runs out, you are going to have to come live with us. You are going to depend on us completely. Is that what you want? What I want is for you to leave me in peace." The words came out with more force than I intended. Ashley recoiled as if I had slapped her. Brad clenched his jaw. "Very well," he said, gathering the papers. "We can leave you in peace. We can leave and never come back. But when something happens to you, when you get robbed, when you get confused, when you are lying on the floor unable to move, don't call us, because we tried to help you and you rejected us." "Brad, please." Ashley intervened with a cracking voice. "She doesn't mean it. She's confused." "I am not confused. I know perfectly well what you are doing." "And what are we doing, Mom? Tell me. Enlighten me." I stood up, facing her. "You are trying to control me, to keep my money, to lock me up in some place where I am no longer a problem for you." Ashley brought a hand to her chest, tears welling in her eyes. "How can you say that? I am your daughter. Everything I do is for you. It has always been for you. Then why do I feel like you are taking everything away from me?" "We aren't taking anything away from you. We are protecting you from yourself." Brad put the folder back in his briefcase with abrupt movements. "Okay, we've wasted enough time here. Ashley, let's go." But my daughter didn't move. She stayed looking at me with those teary eyes, waiting for me to cave, to apologize, to sign the papers. "I didn't do it. Mom, please. We just want what's best for you. The best for me is that you respect my decisions, even if those decisions lead me to ruin." "Yes, even then." Ashley shook her head, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. "Fine, but when things get difficult, don't come crying to our door." They left without saying goodbye. I heard the car engine start, the tires screeching against the pavement. I waited until the sound was lost in the distance before allowing myself to tremble. I collapsed onto the armchair, legs weak and heart racing. My hands shook, my breathing was irregular. But amidst all that chaos, there was something else. There was clarity. For the first time in a long time, I saw things as they really were. This wasn't about protecting me. This was about controlling me. About ensuring that when I died, they inherited everything without complications. And if for that they had to lock me in a home, if they had to have me declared incompetent, if they had to isolate me from the world, they would do it. I got up and walked toward the television. I turned it on and searched the menu until I found the news app. I wanted to hear something, anything to get me out of my own head. But then I saw something that caught my attention. A report on scams targeting the elderly. About children stealing from their parents. About fake powers of attorney. About seniors stripped of everything. It was as if the universe were sending me a signal. I turned off the television and looked for my phone. I had a number saved from years ago. A number I had never dialed because I had never needed help. But now I needed it. I dialed. It rang 3 times before someone answered. "Hello? George? This is Margaret Henderson." There was a pause. Then, a warm, surprised voice. "Margaret? It's been so long. How are you? I need to talk to you. It's urgent. Did something happen?" "Yes, something is happening. And I think you are the only person who can help me. Tell me where and when. I'll be there, tomorrow. At the coffee shop on the square. At 10 in the morning. I'll see you there." I hung up the phone and held it against my chest. I was still trembling, but it wasn't just from fear anymore. It was from something else. Something like hope. Outside, the sky had clouded over. It threatened rain. But inside me, something was beginning to wake up. Something that had been asleep for too long. I walked to the hallway mirror and looked at myself. I really looked at myself. I saw the wrinkles, the age spots, the exhaustion in my eyes. But I also saw something else. I saw a woman who was still alive, who could still fight. And this time, she was going to. That night, it rained like it hadn't rained in months. The water beat against the windows with fury. The wind shook the trees on the street, and I remained awake listening to every sound, every creak of the house, every shadow moving on the walls. I couldn't stop thinking about the folder of documents Brad had brought, about the signatures they wanted from me, about the assisted living facility they already had planned. I got up several times to check that the doors were locked. I don't know why, but I felt like at any moment they could come back, that they could break in while I slept and make me sign those papers. It was an irrational thought, I knew. But fear isn't always rational. At 6 in the morning, I gave up on sleep. I showered, dressed carefully, choosing a modest blouse and comfortable slacks. I wanted to look presentable for my meeting with George. I wanted him to know that I still had dignity, that I was still in control of my faculties. I ate very little breakfast. My stomach burned from nerves. I checked my purse 3 times to make sure I had my ID, my bank card, some cash. I didn't know exactly what I would need, but I wanted to be prepared. At 9:30, I left the house. The sky was still gray after the night storm. The streets were wet, with puddles reflecting the heavy clouds. I walked the 4 blocks to the square with a slow but steady pace. Every so often I looked back, with that persistent feeling of being watched. The coffee shop was almost empty at that hour. There were only a couple of students with their laptops and an older lady drinking tea by the window. I chose a table in the back, from where I could see the entrance. I ordered a coffee I barely touched. George arrived on time. I saw him enter and scan the room. When he found me, his face lit up with a genuine smile. He approached with a quick step despite being nearly 70. "Margaret, it is so good to see you." We hugged briefly. He smelled of subtle cologne and clean soap. He sat across from me and studied me with those attentive eyes that had always been able to see beyond appearances. "You look worried. Tell me what is happening." And I told him. Everything. From the sale of the cabin to the television, from yesterday's visit to the documents they wanted me to sign. I omitted nothing. I let the words flow like a river that had been dammed up for too long. He listened without interrupting. His expression darkened as my story advanced. When I finished, he remained silent for several seconds, processing everything he had heard. "Margaret, this is more serious than you think. That power of attorney they showed you is practically a blank check. If you sign it, they could drain your accounts, sell your house, put you in a home without your consent. And you wouldn't be able to do anything to stop them." "I know. That's why I didn't sign. You did good. But I have to ask you something important. Do you think they are going to stop here?" I shook my head. "I don't think so. I think they are going to keep pressuring me. Then we need to act fast. We need to legally protect you before they try something more drastic." "How?" George pulled a small notebook from his jacket and began to write. "First, we are going to get a doctor to certify that you are in full possession of your mental faculties. That invalidates any attempt to declare you incompetent. Second, we are going to move your bank accounts to another branch where they don't have access or connections. Third, we are going to make a clear will, notarized and sealed. And fourth, we are going to gather evidence of everything that is happening. Evidence, texts, emails, recordings if possible. Anything that proves they are trying to manipulate you. But they are my family. And that is precisely why the abuse is more painful. But it is also more common than people think, Margaret. I went through something similar with my own son. If you hadn't helped me in that moment, I would have lost everything. Now it is my turn to help you." I felt my eyes filling with tears, not from sadness, but from relief. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel alone. "How much is all this going to cost me?" He smiled warmly. "Nothing. You saved me when I needed it most. This is the least I can do. I can't accept that. You have to charge for your work." "Fine. Then when it's all over, you invite me to lunch at your house. Deal?" "Deal." We spent the next hour planning every step. George knew a trustworthy doctor who could do the evaluation that same day. He also had contacts at the bank and knew a discreet notary. He explained that we had to move fast, but with intelligence, without alerting Ashley and Brad until everything was secured. When we left the coffee shop, I already had a doctor's appointment scheduled for 3 in the afternoon. George walked me back to my house to gather some documents I would need. While I looked for my papers, he stayed in the living room looking at the new television. "Nice machine," he said. "And you have every right to buy it. It is your money, your life, your decision. Thank you for saying that. Sometimes I feel like I am losing my mind, that maybe they are right and I am being selfish. You aren't selfish. You are a woman who worked her whole life, who raised her children alone, who sacrificed for them. And now you have the right to live however you want. That isn't selfishness. That is justice. His words comforted me more than he could imagine. The appointment with the doctor was exhaustive. He ran memory tests, reasoning tests, coordination tests. He asked me about my daily routine, about how I managed my finances, about my family relationships. I was completely honest with him. I told him what was happening. At the end, he handed me an official document certifying that I was in perfect use of my mental faculties, that I showed no signs of dementia, cognitive decline, or any condition that could affect my ability to make decisions. He signed, sealed, and gave me 2 copies. "Keep this in a safe place," he told me, "and if anyone tries to declare you incompetent, this will be your best defense." That night, back at home, I stored the document in a metal box I had hidden in the back of my closet. It was the same box where I kept my mother's jewelry and my husband's important papers. No one knew of its existence, but as I closed the closet, I heard my phone ringing. It was Ashley. I hesitated to answer, but finally I did. "Hello, Mom. Just calling to see how you are." Her voice sounded strangely sweet. "Too sweet. I'm fine, Ashley. I'm glad to hear that. Mom, about yesterday, I think we all got heated. Brad and I talked, and we think maybe we were too direct. We didn't want to scare you." "It's fine. Is it fine? Are you not angry?" "I'm not angry." There was a pause. I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line. "Mom, I need to ask you a favor. I need you to lend me $20,000. The world stopped. "What?" "It is an emergency. Brad has an investment opportunity that could triple the money in 6 months. But we need initial capital. We would pay you back with interest." "Of course, Ashley. That money is all I have." "I know, Mom. But if we invest well, you could end up with $60,000. Think about it. It would be double what you have now. I don't trust investments. I prefer to have my money safe." Her tone changed instantly. It went back to being cold, sharp. "Of course. How could you not? You prefer to spend it on stupid televisions than help your own daughter. Ashley, that isn't fair." "You know what isn't fair, Mom? That I spent years taking care of you, visiting you, worrying about you, and now that I need something, you turn your back on me. I never asked you to take care of me. I never asked you for anything." "Exactly. You never asked for anything because you always expected us to do it out of obligation, because that is what good daughters do. Right? Sacrifice themselves for their ungrateful mothers." I hung up the phone. My hands were trembling. My heart beat so hard I could hear it in my ears. The phone rang again, and rang again, and rang again. I didn't answer any of those calls. Instead, I dialed George's number. "Something happened," I told him when he answered. "They just asked me for $20,000. And what did you tell them?" "No." "Perfect. Now listen to me closely, Margaret. From this moment on, everything is going to intensify. They are going to try to pressure you in every way possible. Emotional blackmail, threats, maybe even attempts to make you look bad in front of other relatives. I need you to stand firm. Can you do it?" "I can." "Good. Tomorrow we go to the bank. And then we go to the notary. We are going to armor you legally before it is too late." That night I slept better than the last. But in the middle of the night, I woke up with a terrifying thought. What if Ashley had keys to my house? What if she came in while I slept? I got up and checked all the locks. I put a chair against my bedroom door. And I stayed awake until dawn, with the light on, waiting for the next day to arrive. At 8 in the morning, my doorbell rang. I was so startled I almost dropped the cup of coffee I was holding. I wasn't expecting anyone. George had said we would meet directly at the bank at 10. I approached the window carefully and looked out. It was Brad. Alone. Without Ashley. My first instinct was not to open. But then I thought if I didn't, he might suspect something was up. I needed to act normal, at least until I had everything legally secured. I opened the door, leaving the security chain on. "Good morning, Brad. Margaret, we need to talk. It is important. I am busy right now. This cannot wait. It is about Ashley." I felt a hollow in my stomach. "What is wrong with her? She is very bad. She hasn't slept in 2 days, crying, blaming herself for everything. She says you rejected her, that you hurt her deeply. She even talked about hurting herself. I opened the door completely, although a part of me knew this was manipulation. He entered without waiting for an invitation, walking directly into the living room as if it were his own house. Your daughter loves you, Margaret, more than you seem to value. And when you told her you wouldn't help her, something broke inside her. Brad, I didn't say I wouldn't help her. I said I don't have $20,000 to give you just like that. He turned toward me with a serious expression. Do you know how much we have spent on you over the years? The times Ashley missed work to take you to the doctor? The meals we prepared for you? The birthday gifts? Christmas gifts? If we add it all up, we have given you more than $50,000 easily. I never asked for any of that. But you received it, right? And now that we need something, you turn your back on us? He walked toward the television and tapped it lightly with his knuckles. $4,000 on this. $4,000 you could have lent us. But you preferred your entertainment over the well-being of your own daughter. I felt rage growing inside me. That television has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with us. Because every dollar you spend on nonsense is $1 less you are going to have when you really need it. And guess who is going to have to support you when your money runs out? Us. I am not going to ask you to support me. He laughed. A humorless laugh, full of contempt. Of course you will. All old people end up depending on their kids. It is the natural cycle, but we are being smart, trying to plan your future now. And you are making it difficult for us. I think you should leave. We aren't finished talking. Yes, we are finished. Get out of my house. He stepped closer to me. Not in a threatening way, but close enough to invade my personal space. Margaret, I am going to be very clear. If you don't help us with this loan, Ashley is going to stop visiting you. We aren't going to invite you to family dinners anymore. We aren't going to be there when you need us. You are going to be completely alone. Is that what you want? If the price of your company is my dignity, I prefer solitude. His face hardened. Very well. But when you are lying in a hospital bed with no one to visit you, remember this conversation. He left, slamming the door so hard it shook the walls. I stood in the middle of the living room, shaking, with tears of rage and frustration running down my cheeks. I took my phone and called George. Brad was here, I told him with a broken voice. What happened? Are you okay? He threatened me. He told me if I don't lend them money, they are going to abandon me. Margaret, listen to me carefully. That is emotional blackmail, and it is a form of abuse. I need you to record everything. If they contact you again, if they send messages, if they call you, record it all. That will help us. Record it? Yes. Your phone has a voice recorder, right? The next time they speak, activate it discreetly, without them noticing. I don't know if I can do that. You can. Because if you don't, they are going to keep abusing. And eventually, they are going to get what they want. I met George at the bank at 10 sharp. We entered together and asked to speak with the manager. He was a young man, no more than 40, with professional but kind manners. George explained the situation without going into too many details. My client needs to transfer her accounts to a different branch where certain family members do not have access. She also needs to ensure that no one but her can perform transactions. The manager nodded with understanding. It was clear this wasn't the first time he heard something like this. I can do that. We are going to close your current accounts and open new ones with reinforced security codes. No one will be able to access them without your physical authorization and your ID. The process took 2 hours. I signed documents, established new passwords, configured alerts for any movement in my accounts. When we finished, I felt as if a huge weight had been lifted off me. I also need to make a transfer, I told the manager. I want to move $20,000 to a secure investment account, something that cannot be touched easily. I can recommend a fixed-term certificate of deposit. It guarantees an interest rate, and the money stays locked for the period you choose. How long do you recommend? 3 years is most common. Perfect. Let's do it. George looked at me with approval. That way they can't argue that you are spending the money irresponsibly. It is invested, secure, generating interest. We left the bank past noon. George insisted on treating me to lunch before going to the notary. We went to a small family restaurant where the food was simple but delicious. While we ate, my phone began to ring. It was Ashley. I looked at George. "Answer," he said, "but activate the recorder first." With trembling hands, I opened the recording app on my phone and pressed the red button. Then I answered the call. "Hello? Mom?" Ashley's voice sounded hoarse, as if she had been crying. "I need to talk to you. I'm listening. Brad told me what happened this morning. He told me you kicked him out of the house. He came without warning and disrespected me in my own home. Mom, he was just worried about me. I am doing very badly. I haven't been able to sleep. I can't eat. All of this is making me sick. Ashley, if you need help, you should see a doctor, a therapist. I don't need a therapist. I need my mother. I need you to support me. I support you, Ashley. But I am not going to give you $20,000. There was a long silence. When she spoke again, her voice had changed completely. There were no longer tears. There was only coldness. "You know what, Mom? You're right. I'm not going to beg you anymore. But I want you to know something. That money you have, that money you fight for so much, you aren't going to take it to the grave. And when you die, we are going to inherit it anyway. So you are really fighting for nothing. If that is how you see it, Ashley, then there is nothing more to talk about." "No, there isn't anything more to talk about. Goodbye, Mom." She hung up. I stopped the recording with shaking fingers. George extended his hand. "Can I hear it?" I passed him the phone. He listened to the whole conversation with a serious expression. When it finished, he handed the device back. "This is gold, Margaret. This demonstrates emotional extortion and veiled threats. Keep it very safe." In the afternoon, we went to the notary. She was an older woman, stern-faced but with kind eyes. George explained the situation, and she nodded with understanding. "We are going to make an airtight will," she said. "A will they cannot easily contest. Are you clear on how you want to distribute your assets?" "Yes. I want to divide everything equally among my 3 children, but with a condition. If any of them tries to declare me incompetent, commit me against my will, or take control of my assets before my death, they will be automatically disinherited." The notary smiled slightly. "That is a very standard provision, often called a no-contest clause. It is perfectly legal and very effective." We spent another hour drafting the will. When it was ready, I read it 3 times to make sure everything was exactly how I wanted. Then I signed. The notary sealed the document and handed me a copy. "This stays filed here, in my office. If something happens to you, if someone tries to forge a different will, this document prevails." When I left that office, I felt I could finally breathe. I had my medical certificate. I had my bank accounts protected. I had my sealed will. I had recorded evidence of the threats. George walked me back home. Before saying goodbye, he handed me a card. "This is my personal number. If anything happens, anything at all, call me immediately. It doesn't matter the time. Thank you, George. I don't know how I'm going to be able to thank you for all this. You already thanked me, Margaret, 3 years ago, when you saved me from losing everything. Now we are even." That night, for the first time in weeks, I slept deeply. But at 3 in the morning, I woke up to the sound of something tapping on my window. I got up scared and looked out. It was Brad, standing in my yard, looking toward my window. When our eyes met, he smiled, a smile that froze my blood. Then he turned around and walked away slowly, as if he had all the time in the world. I took my phone with trembling hands and dialed George's number. "They are escalating," I told him when he answered with a sleepy voice. "Brad was outside my house in the middle of the night. I'm coming over. Do not open the door to anyone until I arrive." George arrived in less than 20 minutes. He came accompanied by someone else, a man of about 50, with a serious and professional demeanor. I opened the door carefully, verifying first that it was them. "Margaret, I want to introduce you to Detective Miller. He is a trusted friend. I told him what is happening and he wants to help." The detective extended his hand. "Mrs. Henderson, I am sorry you are going through this. I have seen many cases like yours, more than I would like to admit." We sat in the living room. George made tea for everyone while I told the detective every detail. The television, the documents, the threats, the recorded call, Brad outside my house at 3 in the morning. The detective took notes in a small notebook. When I finished, he remained thoughtful for a few moments. Mrs. Henderson, what they are doing has several legal names: elder financial abuse, coercion, intimidation, harassment. If we managed to document everything correctly, we could file a formal complaint. And what would happen then? Depends on the evidence. They could face criminal charges, restraining orders, fines, in extreme cases, even prison. I felt a knot in my stomach. They are my family. I know, and that makes it harder. But you need to understand something very important. This isn't going to stop on its own. It is going to get worse. And if you don't act now, when you still have control, eventually they are going to get what they want. George sat beside me. Margaret, no one is forcing you to press criminal charges. But we do need to ensure they cannot hurt you. That means gathering evidence, documenting everything, and being prepared to act if the situation becomes dangerous. Detective Miller pulled a small camera from his jacket pocket. This is a discreet security camera. We are going to install it in your living room, pointing toward the front door. If they show up again uninvited, it will be recorded. I am also going to give you this device. He showed me what looked like a common pen. It is an audio recorder. It works just by pressing the top button. It has memory for 8 hours of continuous recording. If they come to talk to you, put it in your shirt pocket. They will never notice. We spent the next hour installing the camera and configuring the system so the recordings were sent automatically to a cloud server. The detective also checked all the locks in my house and recommended changing the one on the front door. If they have copies of your keys, they won't work anymore, he explained. At 6 in the morning, when light began to filter through the windows, they finally left. I stayed alone in the living room, looking at the small camera installed discreetly among the books on the shelf. You couldn't notice it unless you knew where to look. I tried to sleep a little, but it was impossible. My mind wouldn't stop thinking about everything that had happened, about how I had reached this point, about how my own daughter had become a stranger. I got up, showered, dressed. I decided I wasn't going to stay locked in my house waiting for them to make the next move. I was going to live my life. I was going to go out, walk, use my new television, enjoy what time I had left in this world. But before going out, I did something I had been postponing. I called my other 2 children. David lived in another city, 6 hours away. Sarah had been overseas for years. Neither of them knew what was happening with Ashley. David answered on the 3rd ring. "Mom, what a surprise. Everything okay? I need to tell you something." I told him everything. I omitted no details. I expected him to side with his sister, to tell me I was exaggerating, but he didn't. "Mom, I've suspected for years that Ashley had changed. The last time we spoke, about 6 months ago, she asked to borrow money, $20,000 for an investment. I told her no because something didn't add up. She got so mad we haven't spoken since." I froze. "She asked you for $20,000? The same she is asking me now?" "Mom, I think that investment doesn't even exist. I think they are in financial trouble and are trying to get money out of whoever they can." I called Sarah immediately after. She reacted with fury. "Mom, that is abuse. Literal abuse. And if Brad was outside your house in the middle of the night, that is criminal stalking. You have to report them. I don't want to send my daughter to jail. Then she is going to keep hurting you. Mom, I know it hurts, but sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes you have to protect yourself. My 2 children offered me help. David said he would come visit me on the weekend. Sarah promised to call me every day to make sure I was okay. For the first time, I felt I wasn't completely alone. That afternoon, I decided to do something I hadn't done in years. I went to the beauty salon. I cut my hair, got my nails done, bought new clothes. Not because I needed to look good for anyone, but because I needed to feel good about myself. When I returned home, there was an envelope under my door. I picked it up with trembling hands. Inside was a handwritten letter. It was from Ashley. "Mom," the letter said, "I know things between us are bad. I know I hurt you. But I want you to know that everything I did was out of love, out of fear of losing you, out of fear that someone would take advantage of you. Brad and I have been under a lot of pressure lately. He lost his job 3 months ago, and I didn't tell you because I didn't want to worry you. That's why we needed that loan. It was our last hope. But I understand if you don't trust us. I just want you to know that I will always be your daughter, and I will always love you. Even if you don't love me anymore. I read the letter 3 times. Every word was carefully chosen to awaken my guilt, my compassion, my maternal instinct. And it almost worked. I almost picked up the phone to call her and say everything was fine, that we could fix things. But then I remembered the detective's words. This isn't going to stop on its own. It is going to get worse. I put the letter in the metal box along with the medical certificate and the recordings. It was evidence. One more for the collection. At night, while watching a series on my new television, I received a text message from an unknown number. Your daughter is suffering because of you. Are you going to be able to live with that? I blocked the number. 10 minutes later, another message arrived from a different number. Selfish old people like you deserve to die alone. I blocked that one too. I took screenshots of both messages and sent them to George. They are losing control, he replied. That means we are nearing the breaking point. Stand firm. I went to bed early that night, but I slept with the light on. Every noise startled me. Every shadow seemed threatening, but I wasn't afraid. Or maybe I was, but there was something stronger than fear. There was determination. There was rage. There was the absolute certainty that I wasn't going to let myself be defeated. The next morning, while drinking coffee, I received a call from David. Mom, I just got a call from Ashley. She told me you are sick, that you are being manipulated, that a lawyer is brainwashing you to steal her inheritance. And what did you tell her? That she was the sick one, and that if she called me with lies again, I was going to cut all contact with her permanently. Thank you, son. Don't thank me, Mom. This is the least I can do. Sarah and I already talked. We are going to support you in everything. Whatever you need. When I hung up, I realized something. Ashley was trying to isolate me, to convince everyone that I was the crazy one, the manipulated one, the one being deceived. It was a classic tactic of abusers. But it wasn't working for her, because I had acted first. I had secured my accounts. I had made my will. I had gathered evidence. I had spoken to my other children. I had taken control of my own life. And now, it was time to take the next step. The next step arrived faster than I expected. 3 days after installing the security camera, Ashley and Brad appeared at my door. It was Sunday morning. I was making breakfast when I heard the doorbell. I looked out the window and saw them standing on the porch. Ashley was holding a bouquet of flowers. Brad was wearing a suit, as if they were coming from some formal event. I breathed deep, put the recording pen in my shirt pocket, and opened the door. Hello, Mom. Ashley smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. We brought flowers and cake. We wanted to apologize for everything. I let them in. The hidden camera began recording automatically as soon as they crossed the threshold. We sat in the living room, them on the sofa, me in my armchair. There was a palpable tension in the air. Mom, Ashley started, placing the flowers on the table. We have reflected a lot on everything that has happened. And you are right. We were too aggressive, too insistent. Brad nodded. Margaret, we owe you an apology. We were under a lot of pressure and we took it out on you. That wasn't right. I remained silent, waiting. I knew this was just the preamble. That's why we want to start over, continued Ashley. We want to have a healthy relationship with you. No pressure, no asking for anything. Just be family again. I am glad to hear that. But there is something that worries us, said Brad, leaning forward. We found out you have been spending a lot of time with a certain George Jenkins, and that you went to the bank to make changes to your accounts. I felt my stomach tighten. How did they know that? We have friends at the bank, explained Ashley as if reading my mind. And we worry that this man is influencing you. Who is he, Mom? What does he want from you? He is a friend, someone who is helping me with some legal matters. Legal matters? Brad raised an eyebrow. What kind of legal matters do you need without consulting us first? I don't need to consult you on anything. They are my matters. Ashley brought a hand to her chest with a pained expression. Mom, we are your family. If someone is manipulating you, We need to know. We need to protect you. No one is manipulating me. I am making my own decisions. Like changing your bank account so we can't help you in case of emergency? Brad asked with an accusatory tone. They didn't change so you can't help me. They changed so you can't rob me. The silence that followed was deafening. Ashley went pale. Brad clenched his jaw. How can you accuse us of that? Ashley whispered with tears welling in her eyes. We are your family. We would never steal from you. Then why did you insist so much on having access to my accounts? Why did you pressure me to sign that power of attorney? Because we wanted to help you, Brad shouted, standing up. Because we know at your age it is easy to get confused, make mistakes, be a victim of scammers. I am not confused. I have a medical certificate that proves it. Brad's expression changed. It became harder, more dangerous. A medical certificate? From who? From that guy George? From a board-certified physician. And it is filed legally. Ashley stood up too. Mom, what have you done? What I should have done a long time ago. Protect myself. Protect yourself from us? From your own daughter? Ashley began to cry harder. How did we get to this? I gave you everything. I sacrificed everything for you. I was the one who sacrificed everything for you. I raised you alone. I worked until I broke my back so you never lacked anything. And now you come to claim I'm wrong for protecting the little I have left. Brad took a step toward me. His voice was low, threatening. Margaret, you don't know who you are messing with. If you continue on this path, you are going to lose your family. You are going to end up completely alone. And when that happens, don't come crying. I am not going to cry, because I am going to have my dignity intact. Your dignity? He laughed bitterly. Your dignity isn't going to keep you warm at night. Your dignity isn't going to take you to the hospital when you get sick. Your dignity isn't going to bury you when you die. Maybe not. But neither will you. Ashley let out a scream of frustration. You are impossible. You are a stubborn, ungrateful old woman. Ashley, Brad's voice was a warning, but she didn't stop. My whole life, I have had to carry you. Your problems, your needs, your loneliness. And now that I finally ask you for something, you turn your back on me. I wish Dad were alive to see what you have turned into. Those words hit me like a punch, but I didn't let them knock me down. Instead, I stood up and walked toward the door. I want you to leave my house. Now, we aren't leaving until you sign, said Brad. He pulled from his jacket the same documents as before. The power of attorney. The authorization for the assisted living facility. Everything was there. I am not signing anything. Yes, you are going to sign. Or you are going to regret it. Are you threatening me? I am warning you. I took my phone from my pocket. If you don't leave right now, I am calling the police. Ashley laughed hysterically. Go ahead. Call the police. Tell them your own daughter came to visit with flowers and cake. Tell them she brought documents to protect you. Let's see if they believe you. I dialed 911. Before I could press the call button, Brad snatched the phone from my hands. Give me that. No. He put the phone in his pocket. We are staying here until you see reason. You are making a mistake. The only mistake I made was thinking you still had some love for your family. At that moment, the door opened. It was George. He had arrived as we had planned, half an hour after they entered. He came accompanied by Detective Miller and a uniformed police officer, Miss Henderson. Are you okay? Asked George. Brad and Ashley froze. The officer took a step forward. We have a temporary restraining order against you two. I need you to leave this property immediately. Restraining order? Ashley looked around in panic. What are you talking about? Detective Miller pulled out a tablet and showed them a video. It was the recording from a few minutes ago. Brad snatching the phone from me. Ashley screaming at me. The threats, everything was there. You have two options, said the detective. Leave right now and cooperate with the investigation, or I arrest you for trespassing, theft, and intimidation. Brad looked at me with pure hate. This isn't over. Yes, it is over, replied the officer. And if you approach Mrs. Henderson within 100 yards, you are going to jail. Understood? Brad threw the phone at me. It fell to the floor, and the screen cracked. Then he walked out, with long strides toward his car. Ashley stayed looking at me a moment longer. Are you going to regret this, Mom? I swear to you, I already regret it. Ashley, I regret not setting boundaries with you sooner. She ran out after her husband. We watched them drive away from the window. The officer stayed a few minutes more, taking my statement and making sure I was okay. When everyone finally left, I collapsed onto the sofa. George sat beside me. You did very well, Margaret. I don't feel well. I feel terrible, I know. But you did the right thing. That night, while lying in the darkness, my new phone vibrated. It was a message from David. Mom, Ashley called me crying. She told me you betrayed her, that you put a restraining order on her. I told her she deserved it. Sarah blocked her too. We are with you. Another message arrived. This one was from Sarah. I love you, Mom, and I am proud of you. You did what you had to do. For the first time in weeks, I cried. But they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of relief. The restraining order was just the beginning. In the following days, everything crumbled for Ashley and Brad in ways I never would have imagined. Not because I actively sought it, but because the lies they had built began to collapse one after another. Detective Miller called me 3 days after that Sunday. Mrs. Henderson, I need to inform you of something we discovered during the investigation. Brad didn't lose his job 3 months ago, like Ashley told you. He was fired 8 months ago for embezzlement of company funds. There is a civil lawsuit against him for over $100,000. I was left speechless. So all that money he was asking me for wasn't for an investment. It was to pay lawyers and try to reach a settlement before the case went to trial. And there is more. Ashley took out 3 personal loans in the last 6 months. She owes almost $40,000 between credit cards and payday loans. They are bankrupt, Mrs. Henderson. That's why they were pressuring you so much. I felt a mix of pity and rage. My own daughter had been lying to me for months. While she asked me for money with invented excuses, her financial life was disintegrating. But there was more. A week later, I received a call from a woman who identified herself as Ashley's neighbor. Mrs. Henderson, I am so sorry to bother you. I got your number through some acquaintances. I need you to know something. Your daughter and son-in-law have been bad-mouthing you all over the neighborhood. They say you are senile, that a corrupt lawyer manipulated you, that he stole their inheritance. And do people believe them? At first some did, but then inconsistencies started appearing in their stories. And when word got out about the restraining order, many of us began to suspect they were the problem, not you. I just wanted you to know, and I wanted to tell you that if you need character witnesses, several neighbors would be willing to testify that they have been defaming you. I thanked her and hung up. So Ashley hadn't just attacked me, but had tried to destroy my reputation publicly. She wanted everyone to think I was a confused old lady, easy to manipulate, but her plan had backfired. The detective kept me informed of everything. Mrs. Henderson, the employment lawsuit against Brad goes to trial next month. His company has solid evidence he diverted funds to personal accounts. If found guilty, he could face up to 5 years in prison. And Ashley? She isn't directly involved in that. But creditors have already started repossessing their assets. Her car was repossessed last week, and the bank initiated foreclosure proceedings on their house. If they don't pay what they owe in 30 days, they are going to lose it. I didn't feel satisfaction hearing that. I only felt a deep void. This was my daughter, the girl I had raised, fed, cared for when she was sick, and now I was watching her life fall apart. But then I remembered the threats, the manipulation, the lies, and the void filled with something harder, something akin to justice. David came to visit me, as promised. We spent the weekend together, talking about everything that had happened. Mom, this isn't your fault. You didn't force her to marry that man. You didn't force her to lie, to steal, to manipulate. Those were her decisions. I know in my mind. But my heart still hurts. Of course it hurts. She is your daughter. But love doesn't mean allowing abuse. Love also means setting boundaries. Sarah called me every night from abroad. Mom, I am saving money to visit you next month. I need to see you, hug you, make sure you are okay. I am okay, honey. Really. No. You aren't okay. You are being strong. But strong and okay are two different things. She was right. I was strong because I had no other choice. But inside I was broken. Every night I went to bed wondering where I had failed as a mother. What had I done wrong for Ashley to become this? The detective called me a month later with more news. Mrs. Henderson, Brad accepted a plea deal with his former company. He is going to pay restitution and do community service, but he won't go to prison. However, now he has a criminal record. It is going to be very difficult for him to get work in his field again. And the house? They lost it. The bank foreclosed last week. Now, they are living in a rented apartment. Very small. In a not very good neighborhood. I should feel pity, I should feel guilt, but I didn't feel any of that. I felt something more complicated. I felt that life had caught up to them, that the consequences of their actions had finally arrived. One afternoon, I was at the supermarket when I saw her. Ashley. She was in the clearance aisle, checking prices with a tired expression. She had lost a lot of weight. She had deep circles under her eyes. Her clothes were old, worn. For a moment, our eyes met. She froze. I did too. The air between us was charged with everything we hadn't said, with everything we could never repair. Then, she lowered her gaze and kept walking. She didn't try to approach. She didn't say anything. She simply continued with her shopping, as if I were a stranger. I finished mine and left there with my heart racing. When I got home, I sat in my armchair in front of the new television and let the tears fall. I cried for the daughter I had lost. I cried for the relationship I would never have again. I cried for all the years I wasted believing unconditional love was enough. But when the tears dried, I realized something. I was okay. I had my house. I had my money. I had my dignity. I had 2 children who loved and supported me. I had friends who had appeared when I needed them most. And I had my freedom. George came to visit me that afternoon, as he had started doing regularly. He brought pastries from a bakery he liked. We sat together to drink coffee. How do you feel, Margaret? Free and sad. Both things at the same time. That is normal. Relief and pain can coexist. Did you keep feeling that way after what happened with your son? For a long time. But eventually the pain gets smaller. It never disappears completely, but it stops dominating you. And then you can start living again. Did you ever have contact with him again? No. He took his path and I took mine. Sometimes love means letting go. It means accepting you can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. We stayed in silence, drinking our coffee, each lost in our own thoughts. That night, before going to bed, I checked my bank account online. The certificate of deposit was earning interest. My monthly expenses were under control. I had enough money to live comfortably the next few years without worries. I opened a new document on my computer and began to write. I didn't know exactly what I was writing. Maybe a letter I would never send. Maybe a journal. Maybe I just needed to get out everything I carried inside. Dear Ashley, I wrote, I don't know if you will ever read this. I don't know if we will ever be able to talk again. But I need you to know something. I loved you with every fiber of my being. I gave you everything I had. And if that wasn't enough, if I wasn't enough, I am sorry for not being the mother you needed. But I am not sorry for defending myself. I am not sorry for protecting my dignity, because in the end, that was the only thing I had left. And if losing you was the price of keeping it, then so be it. I saved the document without finishing it. Maybe someday I would find the right words. Or maybe not. Maybe some things don't have right words. I went to bed that night feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. It wasn't happiness. It wasn't joy. It was simply peace. The certainty that I had done the right thing. That I had fought when I had to fight. That I had said no when I had to say no. And that, after all, was enough. 6 months after all that, my life had found a completely new rhythm. A rhythm that was mine and mine alone. I woke up when I wanted, ate breakfast calmly in front of my television watching the news or some documentary, and then went out to walk in the park a few blocks from my house. I had made friends, women my age, who also lived alone, who also had complicated stories with their families, who also had learned that solitude was not the same as being lonely. We met on Tuesdays for coffee. On Fridays, we went to the movies. On Sundays, we did longer walks. George had become something more than my lawyer friend. He was my confidant. He came to dinner at my house every 2 weeks, and I cooked those traditional dishes I had learned from my mother. We talked about everything: politics, books, our past lives, our regrets and joys. David visited me once a month. He brought his kids, my grandkids, who filled the house with laughter and mess. I loved that mess. It reminded me that life went on, that there was a future, that not everything was lost. Sarah finally was able to come visit me. She stayed 2 weeks. We cried together, laughed together, healed together. She helped me reorganize the house, donate old things I didn't need anymore, make space for the new. And the new arrived in unexpected ways. I started taking painting classes at the community center. I had never painted in my life, but I discovered I had a certain talent for landscapes. My paintings weren't masterpieces, but they were mine. Every brushstroke was a declaration of freedom. I also joined a book club. We read a book a month and then met to discuss it. It fascinated me to hear different perspectives, debate ideas, feel that my mind was still active and curious. Even I learned to use all the functions of my television. I watched series from different countries, documentaries about places I would never visit, old movies that made me remember my youth. That television, for which I had fought so much, became my window to the world. As for Ashley, I didn't hear from her directly again, but every now and then, news arrived through mutual acquaintances. She had divorced Brad. She was working at a grocery store to pay her debts. She lived alone in a small apartment. She had lost contact with most of her friends. A part of me felt pain for her. I always would. She was my daughter. But another part, the part that had learned to prioritize me, knew she had chosen her path, and I had chosen mine. One day I received a letter. It had no return address, but I recognized the handwriting immediately. It was from Ashley. "Mom," it said simply, "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know I hurt you in ways that can't be repaired. I'm not writing to ask you for anything, just to tell you that you were right, about everything. Brad manipulated me. I let him manipulate me because it was easier than facing the truth. The truth that we were broke, that I had failed, that everything I had built was a lie. And instead of admitting it, I tried to drag you down with me. I tried to take what was yours because I couldn't accept that I had lost mine. Now I am paying the consequences. I have lost my house, my marriage, my dignity. But I want you to know that despite everything, I am still your daughter. And someday, if you want, I would like the opportunity to prove to you that I can be better, that I can be the daughter you deserve to have. I love you, Mom. I have always loved you. Even when I was hurting you." I read the letter 3 times. Then I put it in my metal box, along with all the other documents. I didn't throw it away. I didn't ignore it. I simply kept it. Because maybe someday I would be ready to respond. Or maybe not. But that was my decision. And no one else could take it for me. That afternoon, George came to visit. I showed him the letter. He read it in silence, and then handed it back. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know yet. I need time. That is wise. Forgiveness cannot be forced. And forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means letting go of the poison so it doesn't make you sick." "Did you forgive your son?" "Eventually. But that didn't mean having a relationship with him again. It meant making peace with what happened and moving forward. I think that is what I need. To make peace. And you will. When you are ready." More months passed. Winter came and went. Then spring. I continued with my routine. With my friends. With my classes. With my grandkids. With my new life. And every day I felt a little stronger. A little more whole. On my 74th birthday, David and Sarah came to visit me. They organized a small party at my house. My book club friends came. George. Some neighbors. There was cake, music, laughter. It was a simple but genuine celebration. When everyone left and I was alone, I sat in front of my television and thought about the whole road I had traveled. From that afternoon when Brad tried to take my television until this moment, it had been a painful journey. I had lost my daughter in the process, but I had gained something more valuable. I had gained myself. I opened my computer and finished the letter I had started months ago. The letter to Ashley I had never completed. "Dear Ashley," I wrote, "I received your letter, and I want you to know that I understand it. I understand the pain, the regret, the desire to repair what broke. But I also need you to understand something. I am not responsible for saving you. I am not responsible for fixing your life. That is your task, your path. I already walked mine. And if someday our paths cross again, if someday you can prove to me with actions, not words, that you have changed, then maybe we can have a conversation. But that will be on my terms, in my time, because now, for the first time in my life, I am prioritizing myself. And that doesn't make me selfish. It makes me a survivor. I saved the document, but didn't send it. Maybe I would someday, or maybe not. But having written it was enough. It was my way of closing that chapter. I got up and walked toward the window. Outside, the night was clear. The stars were shining. The street was quiet. And I was at peace, because I had learned the most important lesson of all. That self-love isn't selfishness. That setting boundaries isn't cruelty. That protecting yourself doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you brave. And I was brave. At my 74 years, I had found the courage to defend myself, to say no, to choose myself. If you are listening to this story, if you are going through something similar, I want you to know something. You aren't alone. And it isn't too late. It is never too late to recover your dignity, to protect what is yours, to live on your own terms. Because in the end, when everything is said and done, the only thing that matters is that you can look yourself in the mirror and feel proud of who you are. And I, after everything I went through, could finally do that. I looked at myself in the hallway mirror. I saw the wrinkles, the gray hair, the marks of time. But I also saw something else. I saw strength. I saw dignity. I saw a woman who had survived, who had fought, who had won. And I smiled, because this was my life, and no one, ever again, was going to take it from me. If this story resonated with you, if you know someone who is going through something similar, share this message. Leave me a comment telling your own experience. And always remember, your dignity has no price, and it is never too late to defend it.